Margaret Maggie Sullivan jolted awake at 5:57 a.m., her face damp against the pillow. Emerging from sleep, she realized the wetness under her cheek was warm blood, not sweat or tears, instantly upright and gripped by dread. A throbbing pain pulsed beneath her left cheekbone. Trembling fingers touched her skin and came away smeared crimson, triggering nausea. She rushed to the bathroom and flicked on the harsh light. Her reflection was shockingly unfamiliar. Her left eye drooped unnaturally, her cheek bulged grotesquely, and angry purple bruising surrounded a deep bruised hollow, seemingly sinking into the bone. She whispered her husband Bill's name, her voice cracking, not from the physical agony, but from the genuine fear she felt. This reaction was starkly out of character for the usually unflappable retired teacher, known for sharp sarcasm and unwavering pragmatism. The 54-year-old Maggie Sullivan typically met difficulties with calm resolve, dismissing household problems or past health issues with wry remarks over breakfast. She treated her long-standing diabetes as a minor inconvenience, neglecting insulin and discarding her glucose monitor years earlier. Despite grave warnings from physicians about consequences, Maggie would brush them off, citing her mother's longevity, despite poor diet. However, beneath that steely exterior, her health was deteriorating badly. A recent critical hemoglobin A1C reading of 12.8% had sparked urgent appeals from her doctor. Appeals she casually dismissed with a vow to address it later. Time refused to wait. The trouble started following a fierce storm. 3 days of relentless rain transformed the Sullivans' old farmhouse basement into a swampy mess. Bill suggested calling a professional cleanup crew. Maggie dismissed the idea. She tore into the waterlogged drywall alone, unleashing thick clouds of spores, mold, and dust. After an hour, she ripped the mask off her throat, already scratchy. She waved away the concern. It was just mold, she'd bleach it tomorrow. But tomorrow brought sinus pressure. Then came a deep ache settling behind her eye. Soon after, she couldn't taste her morning coffee. This was followed by an unrelenting metallic flavor coating her tongue. "Did you use sweeteners?" Bill asked her one morning. "Nothing can be tasted." Her eyes began to swell, her face started to swell slowly, and the stalk in her mouth finally slipped out. On the contrary, she took out the remaining antibiotics from the medicine cabinet and promised to call the doctor if there was no improvement by Monday. But Monday never arrived. On Sunday night, Maggie collapsed in the bathroom. Blood poured from her nose. Her cheeks were necrotic and black like rotten fruits. "I think something's really wrong." There were no more arguments. Bill immediately dialed 911. At County General ER, Dr. Reynolds visibly recoiled at Maggie's injuries. Bill urgently described her worsening symptoms and years of poorly managed diabetes. The team acted swiftly, ordering a CT scan and calling in infectious disease specialists. The diagnosis was brutal. Mucormycosis. This rare, aggressive fungus, usually harmless, is almost always fatal in uncontrolled diabetics, devouring flesh and rapidly tunneling towards the brain. Lead specialist Dr. Mason stressed emergency surgery was critical, but bluntly told Bill her chances of survival were slim either way. Bill absorbed this in devastated silence. Hours later, Dr. Mason returned. "She's still alive," he said seriously, "but the infection requires the removal of her nasal cavity structure, paranasal sinus tissue, and extramentary tissue, and right eye." The fungus was already advancing toward Maggie's brain upon arrival. She remained deeply unconscious, her face heavily bandaged, hooked to a ventilator. Doctors started aggressive amphotericin B treatment, despite its known kidney toxicity. The next 72 hours were vital. Bill kept a constant vigil, holding her hand and whispering. He recalled her garden roses, grandchildren chasing fireflies, and her habit of yelling at squirrels. "Fight," he implored softly. "Come back to me." A subtle shift occurred on the fourth day, a faint muscle twitch, then the slow, laborious opening of her remaining eye. "You're still here," Maggie managed, her voice a sandpaper rasp scraped raw by the tube. "You are much stronger than this damn thing." Bill assured her, forcing conviction into his tone. She searched his exhausted face before asking the heavy question, filling the sterile space. "How bad?" His pause was brief, unavoidable. "They saved your life." A stark understanding settled in her gaze. "My eye's gone," she stated flatly. "Part of my face, too." The silence hung thick and heavy. "All that just from mold?" she finally whispered. He met her eye. "Yeah." She turned her head slightly away. "I made my own choices too," she acknowledged quietly. Recovery became a relentless gauntlet. Daily insulin injections she'd long avoided. Waves of nausea and searing surgical agony defined her existence. Now, yet the defiant core of Maggie began to surface. "I have been avoiding needles and threads all my life," she remarked darkly to the nurses during their rounds. "I guess I'm just kidding. I'm very familiar with every syringe here." But the fragile progress shattered a week later. Her temperature spiked violently to 104.5 DEF, triggering urgent alarms throughout the unit. Further emergency surgeries followed, each requiring the removal of additional compromised tissue. More of her upper jawbone, greater sections of her ravaged cheek. The life-saving amphotericin B exacted a steep toll, attacking her kidneys, and forcing the medical team to have a difficult conversation with Bill. "We need to discuss the preferences for hospice care," a doctor stated with quiet gravity. Alone, later, in the hospital chapel, Bill whispered into the stillness. "She never planned for this, but I know her. Surrender isn't in her nature." Somehow, resilience endured. After a third grueling surgery, her fever finally receded, and vital signs stabilized, allowing her move to a standard room. The final bandage removal brought the unavoidable confrontation. Standing before the mirror, makeup abandoned, only harsh truth faced her, a deep hollowed eye socket, a drastically sunken cheek, a startlingly altered face. Looking back, "I think my reading glasses don't need 2 lenses now," she observed flatly, her voice stripped of inflection. Later, in the quiet dark of the hospital room, the dam broke. "I'm ugly," she wept against Bill's shoulder. "You survived," he corrected firmly, holding her close. "You're still my Maggie." Returning home brought kindness, casseroles from neighbors, supportive cards piled on their porch, yet also unexpected sting. An involuntary sharp gasp from a neighbor meeting her new reality sent Maggie retreating inward. She avoided mirrors and even declined video calls from her worried children. "I don't want to scare them," she explained softly. One quiet afternoon, Bill found her, slowly turning pages in old photo albums, filled with images of sunny days at the lake. Grandchildren snuggled on her lap, her face whole and bright with laughter. "I used to be an amazing person," she murmured, her finger tracing a younger, unmarred smile. "You still are," Bill insisted gently, taking her hand. "You just brought your battle scars to a place where everyone could see them." Her fingers lingered over the face in the picture, tracing the confident lines of the woman she used to be. Following that moment of quiet reckoning in the kitchen, Bill found Maggie deeply engrossed in online research. "I've scheduled a consultation," she announced, her gaze fixed on the screen. Reconstruction. At the Detroit Facial Reconstruction Center, Dr. Bennett detailed a grueling 18-month journey, multiple complex surgeries, using tissue grafts and synthetic implants, costing upwards of $17,000, entirely uncovered by insurance. That night, in their hotel room, Maggie stood before the mirror. "I'm not doing it." "Is it the money?" Bill asked softly. She shook her head decisively. "This face is mine now. These scars mark my second chance." Instead of reconstructing her appearance, she dedicated her energy to rebuilding her purpose. Maggie joined an online diabetes support community, sharing her ordeal with unflinching honesty. Her story struck a deep chord, her posts quickly gathering a following. "Because of you, I made my first appointment with a doctor in 5 years," read one message. "If I can stop even one person from ending up like me." Maggie told Bill, her voice thick with conviction, "Then it all matters." He gently mentioned that people might still stare. "Let them," she responded firmly. "Perhaps they will really learn something." She canceled the reconstructive surgery plans and instead made an appointment with her primary care physician. "Dr. Fletcher." "I thought you were coming towards me," he remarked. "No," Maggie corrected him, a determined light in her single eye. "This time, I'm here to manage my diabetes properly." True to her word, she meticulously monitored her blood sugar, consulted a nutritionist, and adhered strictly to her insulin regimen. Her story continued to spread. Her dry wit and unvarnished honesty resonating powerfully, especially with those who saw their own denial reflected in hers. By January, an invitation arrived to speak at County General's Diabetes Support Group. Nervous but resolved, she addressed the small gathering. "My name is Maggie Sullivan," she began. "6 months ago, I thought I was allergic. Today, I live with half a face and a brand new goal." After her talk, a young woman approached. "I'm Jessica Reynolds," she said quietly. "My mother is Dr. Elena Reynolds. She told me about you, but let me listen to you directly. It changes everything." Months later, Maggie stood on a larger stage at the Midwest Diabetes Conference. Among medical experts and professionals, she wore a simple royal blue dress. She presented herself without makeup or prosthesis, openly bearing her scars. "A year ago," she started, her voice unwavering, "I didn't pay much attention to my runny nose. Today I stand before you covered in scars. Yes, but there's no denying that I'm still alive." For 40 minutes she delivered a stark account of her journey, the ignored signs, the defiant pride, the devastating cost. Fixing her gaze on the audience of healthcare providers, she issued a challenge. "Doctors won't soften the message. What's truly frightening? A difficult conversation?" She gestured calmly towards her damaged face. "Or this?" She paused, letting the image resonate. "I can hide this, but I refuse. This face reveals a truth that words cannot express. This is a permanent and non-negligible example of my lesson of refusing to learn." A profound stillness followed her final words. Then thunderous applause erupted and continued. That moment of shared raw truth became the spark igniting Maggie's next chapter, the creation of the Second Look Foundation. Its mission was direct, compelling people to genuinely re-examine their health, persistent symptoms, and the minor signs they habitually ignore. When asked about the name, Maggie's explanation was simple: to make people stop and pray and set a decision without there being any regret. "Take another look," she said. "Look at what they might have missed. Look at what they think is unimportant." Her gaze remained steady. "To look at me." Life gradually settled back into the rhythms of their old farmhouse. Morning sun streamed into the kitchen as Bill prepared coffee. Maggie stood by the window, her fingertips lightly tracing the altered landscape of scar tissue on her face. "How do you feel?" Bill asked gently. She took a slow breath. "I used to pray for the courage to change the status quo," she recalled. "Perhaps the bravest wisdom is to recognize when to accept reality." Bill's grin was warm. "Familiar. Do you know what my mother often says?" "What?" Maggie inquired, turning slightly. "Sometimes," he replied, his eyes gentle, "God acts in mysterious ways." A genuine smile touched Maggie's lips, her single eye bright. "Sometimes," she retorted, her familiar sarcasm filling her voice with love. "He just hit you with 2x4. Their quiet laughter filled the peaceful kitchen, free of bitterness. Later that evening, Maggie unexpectedly caught her reflection in a dark window pane. The woman staring back was not the same person who had once recoiled. Now, she saw the deep hollow where her eye had been, the jagged contours etched across her cheekbone, undeniable markers of the steep price of delay and denial. Yet woven into that altered image, she saw more the indelible stamp of survival strength, tempered by ordeal and a fierce, hard-earned purpose. "We all believe we still have time," she admitted silently to her face in the mirror. "We feel invincible. We think the consequences don't matter. But sometimes," her eyes fixed firmly on her, "the consequences can be quite serious. Sometimes pride demands everything." That's all about our stories. Do you have any thoughts after hearing the story? Please share it in the comments below.